In a dusty drawer, 3 ordinary coins wait for history to blink. A 1972 Roosevelt dime, small, silver-toned, and underestimated. A 1988 Jefferson nickel, worn smooth by decades of quiet trades. A 2003 Lincoln 1-cent coin, copper bright with a modern secret. They look like pocket change, the kind you'd give away without thinking. But tonight, they refuse to stay silent. Because value isn't always loud, and rarity doesn't always shine. 1 year, 1 mint, 1 microscopic detail can flip destiny. A strike off by a hair, a die clash, a metal mix-up. Errors so small they hide in plain sight. Collectors chase them like ghosts through auctions and basements. Prices climb, rumors spread, hands start to shake. What if the coin you ignored yesterday is the legend of tomorrow? What if history slipped into your palm and you let it go? These 3 coins have crossed millions of lives unnoticed. Yet one discovery can rewrite their entire story. From spare change to whispered treasure. From cents and nickels to headlines and heartbreak. Look closer, because the smallest metal can carry the biggest shock, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. The Roosevelt dime of 1972 continues the legacy of the dime introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Following his death in 1945, Roosevelt had been a major figure in American history, leading the nation through the Great Depression and World War II, and his image on the dime symbolizes both his leadership and his connection to the fight against polio, which he himself battled. The 1972 dime features the familiar obverse design by John R. Sinek, showing Roosevelt facing right with the inscriptions, "Liberty in God. We trust," and the year 1972 beneath Roosevelt's neck. This design remained unchanged from the original release, emphasizing continuity and respect for Roosevelt's memory. The reverse of the dime features a torch representing liberty flanked by an olive branch on the left, symbolizing peace, and an oak branch on the right, representing strength and independence. The motto, E pluribus unum, is displayed above the torch. This design was also created by Sinek and has remained largely unchanged, reflecting the enduring symbolism of the torch and branches. The 1972 Roosevelt dime was minted in 3 locations. The Philadelphia Mint, identified with no mint mark. The Denver Mint, which carries a D mint mark. And the San Francisco Mint, primarily producing proof coins identified with an S mint mark. The Philadelphia Mint produced a large number of dimes, as it has historically done, with production aimed at meeting circulating demand. The Denver Mint also produced substantial quantities, and the San Francisco Mint focused on higher quality proof sets meant for collectors rather than circulation. The composition of the 1972 dime is 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, commonly referred to as cupronickel, which is consistent with all Roosevelt dimes produced since 1965, when the U.S. moved away from silver coinage due to rising silver prices. The diameter of the coin is 17.91 millimeters, and it weighs 2.27 grams. Its reeded edge is both functional and decorative, providing tactile feedback and making the coin more difficult to counterfeit. The 1972 dime circulated widely in everyday commerce, being used in bank stores, vending machines, and for personal transactions across the United States. It is estimated that billions of dimes were in circulation during this period, making it a common coin for collectors, but also an essential part of daily life. The Roosevelt dime has always been appreciated not only for its practicality, but also for its artistic merit. John R. Sinek's design was selected to honor Roosevelt's achievements, and the coin has remained a model of numismatic consistency. Over the decades, collectors have sought specific varieties of the 1972 dime, including those with strong strikes, particularly sharp details in Roosevelt's hair and facial features, as well as dimes with full torch and branch details on the reverse coin grading has become increasingly important, with grades ranging from circulated conditions, such as good, very good, and fine, to uncirculated mint state grades, including MS-60, through MS-70, with higher grades commanding greater attention and value. In addition to regular circulation strikes, the San Francisco Mint produced proof versions in 1972, which exhibit a mirror-like background with frosted design elements. These proofs were carefully struck with specially polished dies and were sought after by collectors for their sharpness and visual appeal. Proof sets included the dime, along with other denominations, allowing collectors to own a complete set of U.S. coinage for the year 1972. The Roosevelt dime has also been studied by numismatists for minor die variations and errors, which can occasionally be found among the coins from 1972. These include repunched mint marks, double dies, and other anomalies which add an element of excitement for collectors interested in rarities. The history of the Roosevelt dime is deeply tied to American history, as it reflects not only the memory of a president who shaped the nation, but also the evolution of coinage in the 20th century. From its silver origins to the transition to copper-nickel, the dime has been a witness to economic changes and technological advances in minting. The 1972 Roosevelt dime represents a mature period of coin production when the design had been in continuous use for over 25 years, and the coin had firmly established itself as a staple of American currency. Its circulation and use connect generations of Americans who have held and used these coins in everyday life. The coin serves as both a medium of exchange and a miniature work of art, encapsulating themes of liberty, strength, peace, and unity. In summary, the Roosevelt dime 1972 is a continuation of a legacy that began in 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt. It features the enduring obverse and reverse designs by John R. Sinek, minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, in cupronickel and circulated widely across the United States. It remains popular with collectors and enthusiasts for its historical significance, design, consistency, and occasional varieties, making it an important piece of American numismatic history. In 1972, the Roosevelt dime remained one of the most widely used coins in everyday American life, and its importance extended beyond commerce to its role in commemorating one of the most influential presidents in United States history. Franklin D. Roosevelt had guided the nation through some of its most challenging times, and the decision to feature him on the dime reflected his enduring legacy. One interesting aspect of the 1972 dime is the broader historical context in which it circulated. The early 1970s in the United States were marked by economic changes and social shifts, including the ongoing effects of the Vietnam War, inflationary pressures, and changes in monetary policy. Although the dime was a small denomination coin, it played a key role in daily transactions and vending machine use. Coinage like the Roosevelt dime became a symbol of stability and reliability at a time when the country faced uncertainty. The production process in 1972 involved high-speed coin presses at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, which used steel dies hardened through a process of heat treatment to strike millions of coins efficiently. The San Francisco Mint's proof coins were struck, using specially prepared dies and planchets, resulting in exceptionally sharp details and a mirror-like finish for collectors. The proof coins were often presented in sets along with other denominations and served as gifts and collector items, which contributed to the growth of coin collecting in the 1970s. Another notable aspect of the 1972 Roosevelt dime is the study of minor variations and errors which have fascinated numismatists. These can include small die cracks, repunched mint marks, and minor doubling effects. Some of these anomalies are rare and have become sought-after collectibles, adding another dimension to the history of the 1972 dime. The dime's design itself carries layers of symbolism. John R. Sinek's obverse portrait of Roosevelt captures both a likeness of the president and a dignified expression reflecting his leadership qualities. The reverse torch symbolizes liberty, while the olive branch signifies peace, and the oak branch represents strength and endurance, together conveying the ideals that Roosevelt championed during his presidency. The 1972 dime also represents the continued use of the coin following the 1965 transition from silver to copper-nickel composition. This change had a significant impact on coin collecting and circulation, as it made coins less valuable intrinsically, but more practical for everyday use. The transition also reflects broader economic trends of the mid-20th century. The story of the 1988 Jefferson nickel begins many decades before its actual minting, when the United States first introduced the Jefferson nickel in 1938 as a replacement for the Buffalo nickel. The design created by Felix Schlag featured a portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello Jefferson's historic Virginia home on the reverse. This classic design remained mostly unchanged for many years, and by the time 1988 arrived, the coin had already become a familiar and iconic part of American pocket change. The year 1988 sits in an interesting period of modern U.S. coinage, a time when the mint was focused on efficient mass production and maintaining the consistency of long-standing circulating coin designs. During the late 1980s, the mint was producing billions of coins each year to keep up with the growing needs of commerce, and the Jefferson nickel continued to be one of the most widely used denominations. In 1988, Jefferson nickels were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with Philadelphia coins carrying no mint mark and Denver coins marked with a D. The production numbers were high, making these coins common in circulation, but despite their commonness, collectors still pay attention to subtle details, minting characteristics, and occasional varieties that can make specific examples more interesting. The composition of the 1988 nickel followed the same metal formula used since the end of the wartime alloy in 1946, consisting of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This alloy gave the coin its recognizable silver-gray appearance and its durability, which allowed it to last for decades in circulation. The obverse portrait of Jefferson continued to show the classical left-facing bust, originally sculpted by Schlag. Although slight refinements had been made over the years, the design in 1988 still maintained the traditional look familiar to generations of Americans. The inscriptions included the motto, "In God We Trust." The word liberty and the date 1988 arranged in the same layout used for years. The reverse also retained the long-standing depiction of Monticello, the neoclassical mansion that Jefferson designed himself. The building appears in a side view, with its iconic dome columns and steps forming the centerpiece of the design. Above it is the word Monticello below it, the denomination 5 cents, and the country name United States of America. In 1988, the mint still used traditional engraving methods and large-scale presses to meet the huge demand for coins. Throughout the year, die wear, quality control, and metal plancher preparation all played important roles in the final appearance of each coin. When dies wore down, they produced slightly softer details, which can be seen on coins showing weak steps on Monticello, while fresh dies produced sharper lines that are more valued by collectors. One of the most important features that collectors look for on Jefferson nickels is the condition of the steps on Monticello, known as full steps. These refer to the horizontal steps at the front of the building, which can appear with full clarity when the strike is strong. Because not all 1988 nickels were struck with equal force, full steps examples are scarcer and appreciated by those who specialize in the series. The circulation of the 1988 nickel reflected the economic environment of late 20th century America. Cash transactions were still extremely common. Retail stores, vending machines, and daily purchases relied heavily on physical coins and bills, making coins an essential part of the financial system. Unlike today, where digital payments dominate the 1980s and 1990s, still depended on coinage, and the nickel played a vital role. This means billions of 1988 nickels entered commerce, traveling across states through businesses, banks, and households. Over time, these coins developed wear marks, scratches, and discoloration, which are typical signs of long-term. Used still uncirculated rolls and bags of 1988 nickels were saved by some collectors who preferred keeping fresh examples for future collections. Beyond everyday use, the 1988 nickel also fits into the larger narrative of how U.S. coinage stayed remarkably stable during the final decades of the 20th century. While other denominations experienced design changes such as the state quarter program beginning in 1999, the nickel remained visually unchanged from its original design until major updates arrived in the early 2000s. The 1988 issue therefore represents one of the final decades of the classic Jefferson and Monticello combination before the modifications that began in 2004 and 2006, which introduced a new portrait of Jefferson and a redesigned reverse for coin collectors today. The 1988 Jefferson nickel is often appreciated as an accessible and affordable part of a larger date and mint mark set because nearly every collector assembling a full run of Jefferson nickels includes it. Although it is common, collecting it in high grades, such as Mint State 66 or with full steps, can be more challenging and adds an element of excitement for specialists. Errors and varieties from the year also attract interest. Some examples include die cracks off center strikes, misaligned dies, and other minting anomalies. Although most are minor, any unusual mint error can transform an ordinary 1988 nickel into a unique collectible that stands out in a collection. The historical context of the era is also important to understand the significance of the 1988 nickel. America in the late 1980s was experiencing economic transition, technological growth, and changes in everyday life. Yet coinage remained one of the most stable and familiar pieces of daily experience. The Jefferson nickel continued to symbolize continuity, connecting people back to earlier generations who used the same design throughout wars, economic shifts, and cultural change. As the coin entered circulation, it became part of everyday transactions, whether buying groceries, paying bus fares, or receiving change at gas stations. People handled it without thinking of the long history behind it, yet each coin silently carried the legacy of Jefferson, his architecture, and his influence on American identity. By reflecting on pieces like the 1988 Jefferson nickel, we gain insight into how even the simplest objects can embody deep historical tradition. Minting practices, design choices, material composition, and the social environment all merge into one small piece of metal that passes from hand to hand across the country. The 1988 issue remains a reminder of the endurance of the Jefferson nickel design, a design that served the nation for generations and continues to be appreciated by collectors, historians, and everyday Americans. As time moves forward, fewer high-grade examples will remain untouched, which means collectors who preserve them are safeguarding a small piece of 20th century American history. As we continue exploring the deeper history behind the 1988 Jefferson nickel, we also enter the broader world of American minting traditions and the long path that led to this particular year. The late 1980s were a time when the United States Mint was modernizing its equipment while still relying on many long-established practices. From the preparation of metal planchets to the engraving of design elements, every coin produced in 1988 was the result of decades of refinement in American coin making. The machinery used during this era was capable of extremely high-speed production, but the principles behind minting still followed the old tradition, each coin beginning as a blank metal disc punched from large rolled sheets of the copper-nickel alloy. These blanks were then treated, smoothed, and prepared before being fed into the coining presses, which applied the design with immense pressure. This pressure ensured that the details of Jefferson's portrait and Monticello's architectural features transferred cleanly onto the metal surface, but because of the high volume of coins required, some strikes ended up weaker than others, leading to the variations we see today. Collectors who study 1988 nickels often focus on these strike differences because they reveal how mint machinery performed throughout the year. For example, early die states often produced clear and bold details, while dies that had been used for hundreds of thousands of strikes began to lose sharpness, resulting in the softer-looking coins that circulated widely. This natural die wear is part of the charm of studying Jefferson nickels, because each coin carries subtle clues about its production history. Another fascinating element connected to the 1988 Jefferson nickel is the long narrative of American cultural symbolism. Thomas Jefferson himself remains one of the most influential figures in United States history, author of the Declaration of Independence, third President of the United States and founder of the University of Virginia. By placing him on the nickel, early 20th century America aimed to highlight the nation's intellectual foundation and democratic ideals. Monticello on the reverse added another layer to the symbolism it represented. Jefferson, the architect; Jefferson, the thinker; Jefferson, the visionary of a nation built on knowledge and structure. The 1988 nickel continues to preserve that symbolism, linking modern Americans to the early roots of the Republic. The story of the 2003 Lincoln cent begins long before the coin itself was ever struck, because understanding this coin requires stepping back more than a century into the evolution of American small-denomination currency. The Lincoln cent series, introduced in 1909, had already become one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history, and by the time 2003 arrived, the coin was not only a circulating piece of currency, but a cultural symbol representing history, patriotism, and familiarity for generations of Americans. When the 2003 cent entered production, the United States Mint was already accustomed to producing billions of Lincoln cents each year, and the coin continued to be one of the most used denominations in the country. The design created by Victor David Brenner continued almost unchanged on the obverse, featuring the iconic bust of Abraham Lincoln, which had been originally modeled from a plaque Brenner created decades earlier. The 2003 cent carried this same portrait, emphasizing tradition, continuity, and the Mint's long-standing dedication to honoring significant historical figures. The reverse design, known as the wheat ears design, originally ended in 1958 and was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959, which continued through 2008. Therefore, the 2003 cent shows the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., symbolizing unity, national pride, and the lasting legacy of one of America's most influential presidents. The minting process in 2003 used the copper-plated zinc composition introduced in 1982. The outer layer of copper gave the coin its classic reddish appearance, while the zinc core made the coin cheaper to produce. This cost-saving measure had been necessary because the rising price of copper in the early 1980s made the older copper alloy too expensive to continue producing. By 2003, the copper-plated zinc planchet was the standard, and the Mint had fully perfected its production process. The Philadelphia and Denver Mints produced the majority of 2003 cents, with the San Francisco Mint creating the proof strikes for collectors. Philadelphia pieces carried no mint mark, while Denver struck coins with the D mint mark, and San Francisco produced proof coins with the S mint mark. Billions of coins were made between the mints, which meant that the 2003 cent was extremely common in circulation. Nevertheless, collectors often seek out high-grade business strikes and deeply cameo-proof examples that showcase flawless surfaces and sharp details. The appearance of the 2003 cent is typical of the Lincoln Memorial era. The obverse shows Lincoln facing right with the word "Liberty" to the left, and the date 2003 to the right. Along the top arc appears the motto, "In God We Trust." The reverse continues Henry Herring's depiction of the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959. This design was notable because it subtly included a tiny representation of the seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, visible under magnification. This detail made the coin unique as one of the first circulating American coins to depict the same person on both sides, although the reverse depiction is extremely small. For history enthusiasts, the 2003 cent also represents the final years before a significant transformation in the Lincoln series. Just 6 years later in 2009, the Mint introduced 4 special bicentennial designs celebrating the 200th birthday of Abraham Lincoln and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent. Then in 2010, the reverse changed again to the Union Shield design, marking a new era. The 2003 cent therefore sits near the end of the long-running Lincoln Memorial era, which lasted half a century from 1959 to 2008. Economically, the Lincoln cent in 2003 remained widely used. Although debates about eliminating the penny had already begun, politicians, economists, and citizens were discussing whether the rising cost of producing the cent outweighed its usefulness. These discussions were partly fueled by the Mint's own cost reports, showing that production of the cent sometimes approached or exceeded its face value. Although the government continued producing the coin, the question added historical context to the 2003 issue as part of an ongoing national debate. In the collector world, people often search for varieties and errors from this year. Some examples include off-center strikes, broad strikes, doubled dies, improperly plated planchets, and die cracks. Although no major nationally recognized variety exists for the 2003 cent, the year still provides opportunities for collectors, especially those who enjoy searching through rolls and change. The historical value of the 2003 Lincoln cent lies not in rarity, but in representation. It is a snapshot of American numismatics in the early 21st century, a period in which the Mint was producing modern coins with advanced technology, but still preserving classical themes. It symbolizes the balance between tradition and technological evolution that defines much of modern U.S. coinage. When discussing the broader timeline, the 2003 Lincoln cent connects to the long history of small denomination coins in the United States. Pennies have existed since the late 1700s, evolving through various designs, such as the flowing hair, cent-draped bust, cent, classic, head cent, matron head cent, braided hair cent, flying eagle cent, and Indian head cent. Each of these served as a stepping stone leading up to the Lincoln cent, and each reflects different periods of American culture, economy, and art. The Lincoln cent, introduced in 1909, marked a major shift because it became the first regular issue coin to feature a real historical person, and its release celebrated the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The fact that this design lasted more than a century shows its powerful impact. By 2003, the Lincoln cent had become so familiar that many Americans handled it daily without noticing its design details. Yet for numismatists, the year 2003 sits within an era defined by mass production and modern techniques. The Mint had adopted highly advanced machinery, laser-enhanced hubbing, and refined quality control processes, ensuring that most coins struck were sharply detailed and consistent in appearance. Another important context for the 2003 cent comes from the proof sets of that year. Collector demand for proof coins remained strong, and the 2003 S-proof cents are known for their brilliant mirrored fields and frosted devices. This visual contrast, known as cameo and deep cameo, is highly prized by collectors. Proof coins undergo a special polishing and striking process using carefully prepared dies and planchets. This produces a crisp, refined appearance, dramatically different from the regular circulation strikes. The 2003 cent also reflects changing national sentiments and the cultural importance of Lincoln imagery. Lincoln has long represented ideals such as equality, unity, and perseverance. The continued use of his portrait on the cent reaffirmed these values even in modern times. Additionally, the reverse depiction of the Lincoln Memorial reinforced the concept of national remembrance and respect for American heritage. From a historical viewpoint, the 2003 cent exists in a stable period of American coinage where few dramatic design changes were happening.